Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of Energy Unleashed podcast. My name is Suzanne Worthley with my partner Kim Hess.
Well, hello.
Hello. I think it's so funny because we don't plan these things and we're both wearing yellow.
Mario. Yeah, it's a yellow day.
It is a yellow day, but what's really funny is we're going to talk about some power stuff. So it's the exact chakra color. I think that this is super funny because the solar plexus chakra, unbeknownst to Kim, because I never let her know what we're talking about. You're like, thanks. I think that that's interesting because we're going to talk about some power stuff today, and that is the color of the solar plexus chakra. So kind of interesting to align with that. Lots of times I like to bring forth client sessions to share with everybody, and we kind of unleash them and talk about them. And I like to watch Kim's organic responses. And so what I want to talk about, Kim, is that I actually have had 3 college-age kids within the last, I don't know, maybe month and a half, probably a month. 21, 20, 21-year-olds right in there, 18, 19, 20. College graduates and or home from college and or quit college. And I think this is just such an interesting age, first of all, having to do with power. And I think that these poor kids are really, I don't know, they're killing themselves.
Yeah.
They're killing
Yeah.
themselves over trying to make everybody else happy.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you a couple different little scenarios. I have one that actually just didn't want to do college anymore and actually left and came home and is now living at home. And he is an older sibling living at home. And, it's going fairly okay. But I think that what's so funny is it's not even that the context of what's happening in the household is not going well. It's what everyone thinks in their heads that they're not saying is not going well. Meaning, my parents don't want me here, or the parent is thinking my kid doesn't want to be here. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these frustrations are because people, I think, don't necessarily communicate and tell everything that they're feeling, right? I
Yeah.
had
See that.
I had one just come home recently and she was so incredibly frustrated for being back here.
Yeah.
And it was really, sometimes they're coming home for summer, but sometimes they're graduating. Another one was in mid of doing college and decided that he athletically wanted to go do something else for a while before he finished college. And that was throwing everything into a tailspin. So, we've got a variety of these things, but a lot of the actual frustrations are similar.
hmm
Lots of feelings of, oh crap, I hate being back home.
hmm
Lots of feelings of my mom and dad probably don't want me here. Whereas sometimes mom and dads don't, and sometimes mom and dads totally love having them home, right?
hmm
Which isn't a great thing either because these kids should be getting out and figuring stuff out. So
Right.
I think that this is all over the board. Did any of your kids actually come back home after college and hang for quite a while or no?
Yeah, I think well, my oldest ended up coming home after a trauma, head injury.
Ah,
And
that's
that
right.
was even more difficult because she was used to being on her own for a long time. And
Right.
to move back in with us was like, what am I doing? Like, how did my life take such a turn based on an accident?
Right.
So she went through a lot of emotional stuff with that. And then my youngest came back after college, looking for a job, all of the
Mhm.
things. So she was home for a while before she got engaged and married. So
Okay.
yeah, so there were definitely things because when they're out of the house and they're used to being independent and they're
Right.
used to staying out late or doing different things, but we still kind of want to know what's going on as a parent. It's
Right.
like it's not the same rules as when they were in high school, but at the same time, there's courtesy rules, or it got really
When you're
interesting.
under my roof was my mom's line. When you're under my roof, blah,
Yeah,
blah.
right,
I get that. And
right.
those
And by
are
the way,
good
you're not a
things.
guest. You should maybe
Yeah,
help out while you're here.
right. I think a lot of this has to do with the crux of the uncomfortableness has to do with independence
Yeah.
and feeling independent and wanting to be independent. And a lot of that is coming from the kid, but a lot of that is coming from the parent as well. Like, you should be independent, or conversely, I don't want you to be independent because I love having my baby home. So these are really tough emotional kind of encounters sometimes. And I think
Mhm,
it's really, really important that we sit and we get on the same page so that we know what people are actually doing in their heads instead of assuming,
mhm. Yeah,
right?
and, a lot of it is expectations that were set a long time ago for the children or the parents.
Good point.
You know, I they expect me to do 4 years of college and be this, a doctor or whatever, or 7 years of college and be a lawyer. I don't know that I feel like there's a lot of pressure from families, to be successful in a career,
Yes,
where you can be successful in any type of job and you can be
right.
really happy in different jobs. So I think there's a lot of stress and communication issues around expectations of what they were meant to do in their mind, or what they think their parents want them to do. It goes
Or
both.
society, period. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's what I saw specifically with a couple of them over the years, in the last couple of years. I've seen huge amounts of pressure put on themselves. They don't necessarily even have it coming from
Hmm.
outside sources, but they feel like it is coming from outside sources, but technically it's coming from them.
Yeah.
Putting pressure on themselves, feeling like I have to do this. I don't want to disappoint somebody. I have to do this because my parents, trusted me. They wanted me to do this. They wanted me to go to college. I even had somebody going to college and going through everything at a PhD level and didn't even like what they were doing and
Oh.
still doing the PhD, pushing, 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 and hated what they were doing and didn't want to
Mhm.
do anything even close to that. And it just astounds me that people will put themselves through that kind of pressure, assuming that that is coming from outside sources, whether it's a parent or society, period.
Mhm.
It's really amazing to me that people will put themselves through that.
They do, but you know what? The school systems took a turn in that they weren't promoting, you know, um, certain types of jobs for
Right.
students. They were pushing everyone into the college atmosphere, which actually was a real detriment to so many people because they were doing things that they didn't want to do. But also, we were having a hard time finding people to do certain jobs.
Yes.
That maybe were 2-year degree or specialized in electrician or plumbing, or the schools were really pushing the 4-year degree for quite a while, which was really tough. I think that
And
put pressure on the students.
money, 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 money,
Yeah.
because these poor kids now owe so much. And there was a very short period of time when they were getting out of school and making a ton of money,
Mhm,
which I think was really a head game for them as well. And now we're
mhm.
back to that I'm getting out of school and I'm making no money and I owe a gazillion dollars and
Right.
I can't get a job for the life of me. And so these are really, I think, very difficult things for their head and their
Mhm,
power and their ego because they're really thinking, well, now finally I graduated, so I'm going to get the big girl job. And then they can't even get one at the coffee shop. It's really been, I've witnessed it a lot across the board. I have
mhm.
another client who dropped out of her college and is doing all the 3D world things and moving up the ladder in that way, but even pushing more because it's like, I don't have a degree, so now I'm pushing because I'm going to make this and I'm going to make that happen, which is great, but they're exhausting themselves. I see them very exhausted. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way. I see
right.
these young people very exhausted. Now, that said, if I look back at a Suzanne at 18, 19, 20, oh my God. That was my time when I was becoming the monster of the ego, also going, I'm going to do this and this and this, and I can have 500 balls in the air already. So
Right.
I'm not judging or condemning any lifestyle for that because I certainly did it myself. But I'm here to say in the long run, I think it's very harmful for us to just assume
Mhm.
that's the way that life is, especially now when kids, young people are making careers out of things like, being a YouTube influencer, for God's sakes. I mean,
Right.
they're making more than somebody who went to college for 4 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's so many different types of jobs, especially you see that, there's so many work from home things that are
yes.
pretty decent wages.
Yes.
I'm like,
Or
that
hybrid.
wasn't an opportunity for us at that age. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
It
pretty
and
amazing. It's a lot different.
the pressure I think is so difficult and it makes me a little sad in that they don't have the opportunity to feel a safe environment to awaken either.
Mhm.
Meaning a lot of the people that I work with that are going through their awakening process are in their 30s and 40s.
Mm.
And some of these young people are amazingly gifted. Whether they're psychic, a couple of these on my list today are very psychic, but untapped, unknowing, and very empathic, and not understanding that they're empathing the entire world also. And so they're not having enough cultivated quiet time for them to even know that there's bigger things on this planet than
Mm.
a gazillion hour a week job and a paycheck and a 401k and all those things that our root chakras are still screaming for. And so I find there's two really distinct camps in that I'm going, and I don't even know, and yet I'm super gifted. And those ones make my heart kind of go, oh my goodness, I wish that they could slow down enough to see that this is all the program, right?
It is,
Then
yeah.
I've got a little small amount of these college kids that are like, this place is freaking crazy. We're in a simulation. And I'm like, oh.
You know this already.
Yeah, they already are completely aware that they're walking around in a simulation half of the time, and they understand that this is all, co-created and blah blah blah. And I mean really young ones. I've said before on another YouTube, I have a client who's super young, just turned 15, and understands things like backdrop people, people that aren't even actually in their body, that are just part of the scenery, etc. And I'm like, and thinking that she was crazy and keeping that all to herself because no one is validating that until we had the conversation. And then she's like, these are the things that I think about all day long. So we have all different people, ranges of these people, and these young people
Yeah.
coming from 14, 15 and awakening all the way into their 30s and trying to figure this out. And yet we still see so much of the programming. It's kind of sad.
Well, and I think the idea that it's finding like-minded people, like people
Mhm.
going through similar things. It's really difficult to find that, especially when you're experiencing things that are out of the norm.
Yes,
Who do you talk to about these things? So
right.
I think that creates a whole nother pressure or fear, insecurity, all of the things, because their perception is that nobody else is going through this. It's just me.
Especially college age, because you don't want
Yeah.
to be that weirdo that campus all of a sudden knows that, there's the tarot chick.
Yeah, I think that's a whole nother, it puts, not only are you have expectations of yourself, your parents have expectations of you, but through your experience, finding someone to talk to about all this stuff. It's
Right.
just,
However, I think social media, with how horrible and awful it is, it also is helpful. I mean, there are things like on TikTok or Instagrams or whatever where you can find a so-called, online community of sorts and still feel like you're not completely nuts.
yeah,
The other thing that always makes me giggle is that college age is the time when you have these esoteric or really out there conversations, but they're usually when you're half in the bag. You're either stoned or you're whatever,
yeah,
half drunk in terms of like, hey man, have you ever thought of this? And then all of a sudden these really amazing conversations can come forth, but it's kind of, I think, sad that we limit it to when we're comfortable enough to say it is when we're half in the bag.
right, right.
You know?
Yeah, I agree.
Hopefully that's changing though. Hopefully that these are coming forward more. I would love to be able to see an expansion in the school systems too about things to learn,
Mhm,
more ancient mystery school stuff eventually. Hopefully that'll come forward, not in probably our lifetime, but it
mhm,
would be great to be able to see the young people being able to ignite their psychic senses and come into their own because they fight it at this age so much,
mhm.
you
Well,
know.
and I think the programming is keeping us from doing that. A lot of the programming that's out there. So,
Well, and I wonder because now we can jump to the next category, which is like per se my grandchildren. So, my grandchildren being 2 and 3 years old and up to maybe 6 or 7 right now, the amazing knowing that's coming from these kids and the unabashed, like, you can't tell me that's right because I already know it isn't kind of a thing is really incredible. And so hopefully society and parents and families don't shut that down because a lot of us were shut down when we were younger and we struggle at that college age because all of this starts to rumble around in our head and things like religion and dogma and big box structures and things. You're all of a sudden like, wait, this isn't making any sense. But I think the college age is really 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 difficult because there's this premise of now I'm a big person.
yeah.
Now
Right,
I'm a
'cause you're
grown
you're
up.
not living at home unless you go back home. You're
Yeah.
supposed to be independent. You're making big decisions about your career, you know,
Yeah.
what you're learning to do, um, and, your friend structure changes, like, the people around you
Mhm.
changes, when you get out into the world. It's a whole different yeah, you're a big kid.
Yeah, or it doesn't change,
Oh,
therefore
yeah,
you don't change, which
right.
is also some of the clients that I have in terms of this gaggle of friends, from high school, all went to college and the gaggle is still together, which is great in some regards, but not so great in some regards because you don't explore and change as much
Mhm,
as those that go away and come back. I was one of those moms that said, if you're going to go to school, go somewhere farther from home so that I don't have to watch all the stuff that you're, doing.
experiencing,
Testing.
right.
And I think that's important in terms of I think that that is the time to test out all that stuff. Don't do it when you're 50. Do it when you're, 20s so that you're understanding where your boundaries start and stop. And that is part of growing up.
Mhm,
And that independence, I had a couple of my kids had to, not had to, but chose to come back in this very room, in fact, was the extra bedroom at that point in time, and came back from, I'm engaged or I'm even married because the house that they were getting wasn't available, or
mhm.
there was this time period in between, and that was like, oh my God, these are adult people, and yet your crap's everywhere in my house. you know, that's really hard, right? Because the parent is then going, okay, you're now acting like the child again, and you're actually an adult. So a lot of these underlying upsetting emotions are really something we want to get out and have conversations with when we're in those situations, and make it clear that I'm trying to please you, or you're trying feeling like you're trying to please me, or whatever, so that we all get that out in the open, because most of it is confusing.
Mhm.
We're assuming that the other one is feeling something, and oftentimes they're not.
Right. And that just oh gosh, conversation, communication, it's big.
It's
You
so
have to have the
hard.
conversations, even as hard as it can be, it feels so good when you get once you get through it because you realize, like, you're cooking up stuff in your head that isn't
Right.
really there, that it doesn't matter.
And I also want to point out and unleash a little bit in that the parents, it's very important for us also to not think that our children are a reflection of ourselves. And when our kids are doing this, going to college or having a career or having babies, everybody's always, yeah, we talk about one
Mhm,
upping in other podcasts, well, mine is doing this. Well, mine is at Harvard. Well, mine is, at the community college doing blah, blah, I mean, everyone has this like thing about reflection of themselves through their children and or their grandchildren, and it really isn't a thing, but we make it a thing, and I fall prey to that a little bit more so with grandkids than I do
I
kids.
did with my children. They all
Yeah,
took different paths and are all doing great things,
yeah,
but that expectation of college was so important for Brad and I, or my husband and I it didn't need to be
yeah,
because they don't they don't need to go down the same path as everyone else. And like I said, so one tried college for a little bit and she has an amazing job and
yep,
is doing great. And the other one, he stopped college in the middle and did excavating, you know, uh, and came back. He's like, yeah, I don't want to do that the rest of my life. So I'm going to go back to college. And he did great going back to college.
how
And then
fun.
the youngest, went to college and she loves what she's doing now. So it's it took me a while to step back and be like they're their own persons. It's their journey and
Yep,
they really need to experience these things to figure out what works for them. And as hard as that was, as from a parent perspective, I'm just so proud of all of them that they
right.
stood their ground and they did what they really wanted to do.
And I
Um,
think it's really hard for kids right now that have gone to 4 years of college and owe so much money, and
Money.
have a
Mm,
regret and have an anger and a frustration at the system for not even getting any help or whatever. And really realizing that 4 or 6, sometimes even years of this crap is just so stupid in terms of real life. And I do my best to interject, yeah, but there's also something that you can't put a dollar amount on when you have the experiences that one has when that one goes away and
Mhm,
comes back home. There is this whole thing about that one client that came back home again, and she was so angry that she was home, and it wasn't it it's a learning curve. This is a part of you understanding where you are, how you fit in, how you change, how you navigate. All of that is part of the journey of the schooling, right? I mean,
mhm,
that's part of it. Even if I come home for summer vacation or Christmas vacation and I don't feel independent now, you're making me feel like a kid. These are all things that are really lessons that are part of the college tuition experience, right?
mhm.
And we can have that whether we go to college or not. But most often when we're in college, those are pretty exacerbated and big. Because,
Yeah,
I'm out, I'm on my own, I'm in the frat house or I'm in the dorm, and all of a sudden now I'm in my old bedroom with pink bunnies on the wallpaper. I don't like that. I'm just like, what is that?
yeah,
So it's hard. It's really hard to feel like your ego again is getting stomped on and no one respects you, you know. But I
yeah.
also think it's really difficult. You said earlier that your friends change sometimes too. Oftentimes when we go away to college and we come back to our so-called high school friend group and everybody's different. Or like I said, sometimes the friend group goes back and forth. But let's stay with the first one. If I go back and all of my now really peer friends that resonate with me are here, and then I come back and I'm here and all my high school friends are here as far as frequency and likes and dislikes, that's really difficult. It's really difficult.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because your friends that stayed, or they're in a different routine with different people potentially too. I mean,
Yep.
it's it's okay that it's not the same. And by the way, it's not a failure to do this. This is just a decision point in life that
Mhm.
you need to find what the path looks like going forward. You
And
know,
mine was completely different because I did the community college because of the finances of our family. We didn't get to do the 4-year thing, but I did, two different rounds of community college for two different certifications. And I was a working person and school person, and all my friends were out getting, having it, whooping it up, getting, toasted. And I'm like, yeah, but I got to go to work at 6 in the morning. So
mhm,
it was a really difficult journey for me to feel like I grew up super fast and chose that path of go, go, go and pressured myself like some of these kids are that I'm working with. And that's really hard, but we're doing it to ourselves. And so look at your belief systems and figure out, does that come from mom and dad, like you admit in your case?
mhm,
And if it does, we can either work through those, change those, modify them, or let them go completely. It doesn't mean it has to stay there forever. Belief systems are something to look at always,
mhm.
right?
Always,
Super important.
always. Even now, I'm looking at what my path is at 60 years old. Like,
Yep.
what does this look like? And what am I dabbling in? And what am I really taking seriously? And what is this going to turn into? Who knows? You just keep doing it.
Well, and lastly, I think what's important too is that we don't necessarily want to put the value on the degrees and the work and the job as much as the human. And I was fortunate enough, as were you, to be up at the lake through the holiday and be with, multiple generations, my parents being in their 90s, my own children and my own grandchildren for quite an extended period, plus some sibling stuff. And it was to just sit back and really see who became what kind of a person and
Mhm,
how they parent and how they interact and how they still treat a grandparent and on and on. Those are the things that I think we don't put enough value in as much as I've got this great job. When you meet somebody and they say, hey, what are your kids doing? We rattle off their jobs and their kids versus, my kid's a really great, compassionate, loving human being
mhm.
that is a wonderful, part of this planet. We don't talk like that. And
No.
that's actually what is makes the heart just go, "Oh my goodness." I mean, I was so impressed and proud of just being.
Yeah.
And I thought that that was really cool, you
It's so
know?
cool. And just taking the moment to be grateful, many times through the weekend because, good friends, family, it's
Mhm.
just um it's so important. That's what really matters.
And to watch somebody unwind from the ridiculousness of the college push Or, we've still got my daughter-in-law is at just finished and graduating with her PhD. And so doing the dissertation, and the work and constantly on the computer and saying, finally, I won't have to be on the computer. I can be on the lake with everybody else.
Mhm.
It's such pressure and it's such stress when we're in that school system still. And the school systems themselves still push, 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 push. And so it's really up to us as an individual and or family support system to really weigh out, yeah, but you also could maybe just chill and have some fun on the pontoon for a while.
Yeah,
I'll take care of this. You maybe go do that. So it's really watching our loved ones too to see that we're not supporting that. You got to do this. You got to finish that. You got to be so wonderful. It's hard. You
it's
know,
hard.
it's a hard balance.
Hard. It's hard, and it's really understanding yourself and your boundaries,
I
what
will
works
be
for you, what doesn't.
I will be curious what school looks like in a couple of years. I will be curious to see what colleges look like in 20 years. I
I
think,
don't know, because that was a big campaign happening for quite a while for the four-year
yep,
degrees, at least four-year degree.
yeah.
So,
And I
yeah,
wonder
any
what that's going to be like because a lot of those young people that were pushed and got into really high paying jobs right
yeah.
out of school, that's not happening anymore at all. And what happens to those people that are now, what would that be, about 36, 37? That
Mhm.
age is when they were really coming out and making some serious ching. Like I was like, what? That
Yeah.
kind of like, you're making what? And that's not happening anymore. And I would be curious to see what happens to those people because that 30 age period is when we change so extensively in our energy and our philosophies and our beliefs and our
Mhm.
life experiences. And it will be, I think, interesting to just see how that whole generation plays out. And
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be very different, so much different than the baby boomer, you know, that's so when you look at when they become 60 years old, 70 years old, like what is that
right.
look like? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
And do they even know how to enjoy life anymore? Because I have just banked and banked and banked away. And, I also have clients and know of people who have lots and lots of moolah, but aren't having any life experiences worth a damn. So, it's just going to be interesting to watch.
it will be. It will be. Here we go.
Yeah, right. All right. Any others on that? Anything else?
No, I think
I
it's really
just,
good. And I think like your
yeah,
message, the most important part is, it's not a failure to make a change,
gosh, no.
that do what really feels right in your gut. And not everybody's going to agree with it. That's okay. It
Yep.
all works out in the end. But you
And
have to
just
really,
communicate
yes.
so much in terms of I feel like I'm pressured. I, not you, you, you.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm doing this for you. I don't want to disappoint you. And then that parent's going to be like, what?
Yeah,
You're
right.
not a disappointment. So these are the conversations that I think are imperative to come forward.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. That's a good one. That's
Cool.
fun.
All
Yeah.
right, everybody. On behalf of Kim and I, hit the like button, share button, subscribe button, anything you choose to button.
Or let
And
us know any topics that you would like to, have us talk about.
yeah,
So,
for sure. All right. Until next, Cosmic Hugs.
goodbye.